So I have spent the last 2 weeks, ever since the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, coming up with a driver of the season algorithm. And this overall algorithm has taken a look at over 165,000 individual unique data points across all of the 22 races of this Formula 1 season, with there being anywhere between 5,000 and 8,000 individual data points per driver to come up with this order. Now, if you would like a full breakdown of this algorithm, then please let me know in the comments down below and I will look at creating a video, but bear in mind it will be very, very long if I do end up creating that. But to briefly summarise, there are two main categories which look at every single session in a Formula 1 weekend. Practice takes up about 2%, qualifying 20%, and the race 78% of the overall scores, with the two main categories being teammate performances and your own individual performances as a driver, with there being 15 mini categories under the teammate performance group and 20 mini categories under the individual performance group, with there being a 20% weighting to the scores coming from the teammate performances and an 80% weighting coming from the scores from the individual performances. Each of these 35 overall mini categories is scored out of 20, and then everything all gets averaged at the very end. Now, just one thing to note with this is it is nigh on impossible to score 20 out of 20. I think the highest season score for any one race is 14.2, so it is extremely hard to get that 20 out of 20. And equally, this is looking at literally just all of the numbers that I can possibly find from a Grand Prix weekend. So just because you lead a race from start to finish doesn't mean you're going to score the maximum you possibly can. If there is someone in a slightly slower and a slightly worse car further down the grid that actually outperforms that car and puts it into the points, they will end up scoring just that little bit more. Equally, how well you do against your teammate has to be taken into account. However, it's only a 20% weighting of the overall score because there are some polar teammate pairings, so you can't be overly benefited for having a bad teammate, or you can't be overly punished for having a superior teammate. Hence the 80% weighting to your own individual performances relative to where your car is, and then the 20% weighting to your teammate performances. But with that out of the way, let us delve on into the rankings, and P20 is Yuki Tsunoda, with a season score of 169.8 and an 8.1 race average score. The best race for Yuki Tsunoda was Abu Dhabi, 11.8, with Brazil just a couple of races before being the worst race of the season, a 5.3. Yuki definitely had a better first half of the season, scoring 8.6 across these races compared to 7.6 for the second half. Also note that Belgium has been excluded for every single driver, mainly because the race didn't actually happen, so I can't take any data points from it. And from P20, we'll take a look at P19, and that is Valtteri Bottas, scoring 189.4 with a 9.0 race average, with a joint best race of Monaco and Turkey scoring 11.7, and a worst race of Azerbaijan scoring 3.9, one of the lowest scores of the season. And much like Yuki, Bottas had a better first half of the season, scoring an average of 9.3 per race compared to 8.8 in the second half. And then P18 is Sergio Perez. He ended up scoring 190.8 across this entire season with a 9.1 race average, with a best race result of Britain scoring 10.7 and a worst race of Saudi Arabia. Again, scoring 9.3 for the first half and 8.9 in the second, he follows the trend of the previous two drivers, performing better in the first half and worse in the second. Now, I can already feel that this is going to throw up a little bit of controversy, having Sergio Perez ranked so low. But not as much, I don't think, as P17, Daniel Ricciardo. He had an overall season score of 191.1, with again a 9.1 race average, a best race of Brazil and a worst race of Styria. However, it was Ricciardo who actually performed better in the second half of the season, averaging at 9.2 compared to 9.0 in the first half. P16 for the season goes to Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. He ended the season with 192.2, a 9.2 race average, with a best race of Azerbaijan, 12.2, and a worst race of Brazil of 4.9. However, Stroll performed significantly better in the first half of the season compared to the second, with P15 going to Kimi Räikkönen. Now, unfortunately for Kimi, he did end up missing the Netherlands and Italy, so his entire season score is bumped a little bit down with 196.2. However, his race average of 10.3 is quite high up. He had a best race result of Mexico of 13.3 and a worst race result of Abu Dhabi with a 6.0. And Kimi, being the most experienced F1 driver in history, showed his extreme consistency. 10.3 average for the first half of the season and a 10.3 average for the second half of the season. With P14 of the year going to Nikita Mazepin in the Haas. Now, Nikita actually had some fairly strong races. He ended up scoring 198.2 across the whole season with a 9.4 race average, with a best race result of Britain, 11.3, and a joint worst race result of Turkey and Saudi, scoring 8.4. However, again, like most other drivers so far this season, he performed better in the first half of the year compared to the second, with P13 being awarded to Sebastian Vettel, with an entire season score of 203.6 and a 9.7 race average. Mexico was his best race, scoring 13.1, with Britain being the worst at 4.6. However, Vettel had a significantly better second half of the season, with USA onwards consistently scoring double digits. And from Sebastian Vettel in P13, we will head to P12 with Esteban Ocon. Now, Ocon ended up scoring 212.2 with a 10.1 race average overall, with a best race result of Saudi scoring 14 flat, followed very closely by his Grand Prix victory in Hungary, where he scored 13.9. And again, similarly to Kimi, he had a very consistent season, scoring 10.2 across the first half of the year and 10.0 across the second half of the year. And then we head to the fringes of the top 10. We go to Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Leclerc ended up scoring 217.8 with a 10.4 race average, with a best race result of Britain securing a P2 with 13.1 and a worst race result of France scoring 5.4. With Leclerc having the same race averages in the first half of the season compared to the second half. So with the first 10 drivers all done and dusted, what do you think of the order so far from P20 down to P11? Is there anything you agree with, or is there anything you disagree with? But from Leclerc, we will now head into the top 10, and P10 is Carlos Sainz. He ended up scoring 218.6 with a 10.4 race average, with a best race result of Hungary 13.3 and then Azerbaijan being the worst of 6.3. However, unlike Leclerc, Sainz actually had a better end to the year, scoring an average of 10.6 across the last couple of rounds and 10.3 compared to the first half of the year. And so from Carlos Sainz, we will then head to P9. Lando Norris. He ended up scoring a season's total of 221.3 with a 10.5 race average, with a best race result of Imola, where he scored his first podium of the season, and Monaco, scoring 12.8 each, with a worst race of Saudi, 7.1. However, Norris had a significant drop-off in performance scores in the second half of the year, scoring an average of 11.1 in the first half and then 9.9 in the second half. And so from Lando Norris in P9, we will head to Antonio Giovinazzi in P8. He ended up scoring a 222.2 across the whole season with a 10.6 race average, with Turkey being his best result, scoring 13.1, and again he had a slightly better second half of the year, scoring 10.7 across the second half of the year to 10.5 in the first. As we head from P8 down to P7, Nicholas Latifi. He ended up scoring 222.9, just 0.7 of a point above Nicholas Latifi, with again a 10.6 race average. He had a best race result of Abu Dhabi, scoring 12.7, and a worst race of Portugal, scoring 8.6. But Latifi ended the season really well, scoring an average of 11 across those races, where he scored just 10.3 across the first half of the year. where it was in those latter rounds from Brazil onwards where he finally got the better of George Russell on numerous occasions in qualifying. So we then head to P6 of the field, Pierre Gasly. He ended up scoring a season's total of 234.9 with an 11.2 race average score, with a best race result of Saudi Arabia 13.5 and a worst race result of Qatar 7.9. But Pierre was again extremely consistent, scoring an average of 11.1 across the first half of the season compared to 11.3 for the second half of the season. And it is here where we then break in to the top 5. We start with Fernando Alonso. He ended up scoring a season's total of 235.8, an 11.2 race average, with a best race result of Russia, scoring 13.7. And Alonso was one of those drivers who again had a significantly better second half of the year, scoring 10.9 in the first half and 11.6 in the second half. So we move from Fernando Alonso in P5 to Lewis Hamilton in P4. He had a season's total of 236.5 with a race average of 11.3 with a best race result of 13.1 and a worst race result of Monaco 7.7. However, unlike most drivers this year, Hamilton had a significantly better second half of the year by an entire point. He averaged at 10.8 across the first half of the year, and he ended on 11.8, with the only race in single digits being Turkey, where he scored 9.3. And so we move into our top 3. And for P3, it is Max Verstappen, the world champion of 2021. He had a season's total of 240.3 with an 11.4 race average score. He had a best race result of Austria with 12.8 and a worst race result of Italy of 7.8. Now, Verstappen had an exceptional first half of the year, scoring 11.7. However, he dipped ever so slightly in the second half of the year, scoring just 11.2. And so we move into our top 2, just 2 drivers left to look at. And in P2, it is Mick Schumacher in the Haas. He had a season's total of 244.6, an 11.6 race average, with a best race result of Qatar scoring 13.6 and a worst race result of Mexico scoring 9.2. And again, Schumacher, much like Verstappen and a few drivers before, had a slightly better first half to the year compared to the second half. Which means after a total of 165,000 data points of analysis, we have a driver of the season of George Russell in the Williams, scoring a season's total of 247.7 with a race average of 11.8, a best race result of Bahrain scoring 14 flat, and a worst race result of Saudi Arabia scoring 9.6. Russell absolutely excelled in the first half of the year, scoring an average of 12.4 across that first half of the season. However, he ended up dipping significantly in the second half of the year, scoring 11.1 across those races, where it was in the last couple that he was outqualified and outperformed by Nicholas Latifi. And there we go, there is the conclusion to my driver of the season algorithm, which has looked at well over 165,000 individual data points to produce this order. Do I personally agree with it? Not 100%. The middle ground, yes. The bottom couple and the top couple, not so much. But what do you guys think of this order that has been produced from this massive algorithm? And then also, if you would like an explanation of exactly how this works, then please let me know in the comments down below, and I'll look at creating an explanation video. But that is all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.